Rev up your engines! The 2018 Civic Si. All the die-hard fans say, I'm gonna get a Civic Type R, it's racing, it's screaming. Well, this is a Civic Si. It's the baby brother. Got a good deal? Paid 26 grand. I got customers with Civic Type Rs. Guess what? They were 38 grand and above, depending on what they added on it. Is it really worth the difference? Would you be happy with one of these? This Civic Si has 208 horsepower. That's a lot of horsepower for a little car. Certainly not as the Type R. But how fast do you really want to go? This engine under the hood, only over 200 horsepower. This thing goes 138 miles an hour. If you get a Civic Type R, yes, it tops out at 170 miles an hour. But how often are you going to be driving 170 miles an hour? Yes, at a racetrack and things like that, but understand, if you're going to be driving those kinds of speeds, you're going to have to buy special racing tires. They're going to last like 500-600 miles and wear out, and you need new tires. You got to think about all that stuff. Plus, this Si has very comfortable seats. As you can see, you fit in nice. They're very comfortable. If you can find a Civic Type R at a dealer, sit in it and sit in an Si. And you'll see, just to begin with, these seats are much more comfortable in the Si. And this Si does have a sport mode that makes the suspension very tight. But even the owner admits he does that when he's driving like a maniac so it handles better. For normal riding, he doesn't use it because it's just too rough. If you got a friend with a Civic R, take it for a ride. And you would be amazed at how rough the ride is. You can drive this thing every day. Honda Civics, 200, 300, 400,000 miles, they're still rolling down the road. This thing can last a long time. You take the special suspension on this. You can ride normal, you can put it in sport. But it's a Honda. What's Honda known for? Reliability. If you saw my video on the mid-engine Corvette, it had the sport suspension, luxury suspension, and when you put it on sport, it was really stiff and handled like a dream. And when you put it on the touring mode, it was soft like an old Cadillac. But it's a GM product, not known especially for quality. And guess what? On that Corvette, each individual strut costs over 1,400 bucks just for the part. A lot of money. You know they're gonna break over time. I've seen Honda Civics, couple 100,000 miles, still had the original suspension on them and rode okay. It's a different ball game. Now, if you like handling, you'll like these low profile tires. But let me warn you something about low profile tires. There's not much give. Take a regular tire like on my wife's Lexus. A lot of the rideability is the sidewall flexing. And this is the worst thing. Damage. Okay? The owner isn't an idiot who doesn't know how to drive and smashed into a curb. He did not hit a curb. He was driving in Gatlinburg and there was a giant pothole that he couldn't avoid. So he had to drive through it. Low profile tires go through a pothole, bang, you can bend those rims. And these rims aren't cheap. A set of 4 of these factory rims is $2,600. So low profile tires, you know, that's up to you. They do handle like a dream, but you drive in roads that have problems, it's gonna cost you money. And for a high performance tire, the tires themselves are not that bad, but they're still 240 bucks a piece. Hey, on my old Celica, I paid like $60 a piece for mine, and they're still going down the road. He put the Type R fins on it to make it look a little snazzier, but even the stock look of this car is pretty cool. Compare this to an old Civic. Yeah, quite a bit different in how they look. Now, realize that yes, this is a 1.5 liter Earth Dreams engine, and people have recorded problems of oil dilution, that gasoline is getting by the piston rings and getting in the oil. And as you can see here, a turbocharger. This little bitty 1.5 liter engine puts out over 200 horsepower. Now, this is the original owner. He's got like 34,000 miles. It doesn't burn any oil. He hasn't had any problem. But Honda has extended the warranty on these things for 6 years of unlimited mileage. Rarely does anyone give unlimited mileage. So you could drive this thing 300,000-400,000 miles if you wanted the first 6 years. And if the engine broke, guess what? They're gonna have to fix it for free. You really can't argue that if you're gonna do a lot of long distance driving. It's a good idea to change your engine oil a lot. Personally, I wouldn't listen to any of the nonsense that the manufacturers have. If I owned one of these cars, which I don't because I'm too cheap to buy a late model car, but if I did, I would change the oil every 4,000 or 5,000 miles using full synthetic oil. Now you have to use full synthetic oil in any of these modern engines because that's the only type of oil that can be 0W20. A conventional motor oil can't be made with 0W, so it's got to be synthetic oil. And if you own any of these engines, especially a Honda, my advice is always use that new GF6A oil. It was designed for these engines and it came out in like March of this year. You don't have to buy it from any particular company. It's a brand of oil, generic brand. It's not a specific brand. It has to meet certain specifications so the timing chains don't wear, the bearings don't wear, and it doesn't have the problem with the oil dilution. It only costs a little bit more. Yeah, when it first came out, of course, it was really expensive. Like everything new costs too much, but now a bunch of companies make it. So just make sure you get the GF6A oil that you're going to use in one of these engines to stop the problem and change it more than normal. There's no way that I would own one of these and change it every 10,000 miles. I'd max out at 5,000 miles. Hey, engine oil, cheap compared to engines. Engines cost a lot of money, oil doesn't. Just change the oil more often, that's all. In a place like Alaska where it's 40, 50 below, yes, you want to warm the engine up and then drive a little while. You wouldn't want to get in it, drive to the convenience store and come back, and that's all the driving you do. You'd want it to fully warm up so it can evaporate any of the gasoline fumes that get in the oil. All that stuff will be boiled out if you drive it at a high enough speed for a long enough time. Maybe 15, 20 minutes is all it needs, but you don't want to buy one of these and drive it, 2-3 miles a day. That's not a smart idea. How does it run? Well, let's check it out. If you listen, you will hear a noise. That is the low profile tires. They handle well, but they are noisy. If you don't mind the noise, you don't care, but they're noisy tires. As we round this curve, we'll see how it takes off. Give it a little bit of gas. It's got plenty of zip to drive around in. I mean, I see no reason you need to go more than 139 miles an hour. And believe me, if you go back and watch that video I made with my customers, it was riding like a sleigh on dry pavement. Bangity, bangity, bang. This does not ride like that. You can use it as an everyday driver. Now, of course, being a Honda Civic on the highway, took a trip to Atlanta, got like 40 miles a gallon. They get phenomenal gas mileage. They're a logical car, but this one is also a fun car, but not too insane. Now, realistically speaking, the Type R is only rated at 28 miles a gallon on the highway. And only a really conservative driver is going to get that, and that's not the type of person who buys the Type R. And the R really means racing. They're made for racing. They're not made as an everyday driver. If you want the best compromise, you want to have some fun, you want to get a good gas mileage, you want something that's going to last a long time, hey, it's a pretty good choice. You can add on stuff like he did with the claw marks. Talking Honda Civic, there is an insane aftermarket for these things. And when you consider the $12,000 to $20,000 lower price of a loaded Civic Type R, you can do a lot with even a portion of that money. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Pedro Pozo says, Scotty, my 2000 Nissan Pathfinder makes a clunk noise when I turn at low speed sometimes. Handles fine. What could it be? Many things can clunk. What you want to do is watch my video, How to Fix Your Own Car Suspension, Scotty. Put it on YouTube and watch it. Grab the wheels. And if you get the clunk replicated, see if it clunks this way, it's usually the tie rod, and you'll see the part move. Clunks this way, it's either the strut mount or the lower ball joint clunk, and see which part is moving. That's the most common things. You can also have a steering rack that goes bad. You can have bad wheel bearings, lots of things. But you said it only happens sometimes. So jack it up and try to replicate the sound, and then you'll see what it is. And if you see it, can feel it clunk, and then you see a part is moving when it pulls, you definitely want to replace that part sooner than later, because that's a relatively heavy vehicle and you don't want it snapping while you're driving down the road 65 miles an hour. Steve Six says, Scotty, why does my 07 Yaris make a whiny noise every time I drive it? Mechanic checked it with a scan tool and everything was fine. What could it be? Well, when your mechanic is an idiot, don't go to him. You can get a scan tool for whining noises. You need sound tools. I have listening devices that I stick headphones on, and it's got a receiving unit like an FM radio, and then it's got sending units, 4 of them. And you put them in various parts of the car and drive it. And then when you keep going 1, 2, 3, 4 on the receiver, you hear the noise that's being sent from 1 and then 2 and 3 and 4, and you keep keep doing it until you pinpoint where the noise is whining from. Now, it could be as simple as alternator. Take the fan belts off. If the whining stops, see if it's the alternator bearings wobbling around. You know, if it doesn't stop, then it's something else. Transmissions can whine. All kinds of things can whine. You want to pinpoint the sound, but a scan tool is pretty useless for that. Some crappy mechanic there. Find yourself another mechanic, too. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.